What is pity? Many of us have experienced this feeling. Personally, I have felt sorry for people. I think it's a wonderful feeling as long as you don't overstep your bounds. Unfortunately, you can't always rely on a person. You trust them, and they lie and do their own thing behind your back. And even if you catch him red-handed, he'll fight back. I've encountered a terrible situation and I want to share it. My name is Edward Olson. I am 32 years old. Life was not generous to me in my youth, but I never gave up. Born in a small town where everybody knew everybody, I dreamed of bigger things. My parents worked from morning till night to secure my future. I decided not to waste my energy. Studying was not easy for me, but thanks to my persistence and desire to prove to everyone and myself that I am capable of more, I graduated from college with honors. This was the beginning of a new chapter in my life. Right after college, I received an offer from a large company and started my career. Work took up almost all of my time, but I didn't complain. Success in the professional field gave me confidence. I started to build a life as I had dreamed. I bought a car, then a house. Everything was going according to plan. Until she came into my life, my first wife. We met in college. It seemed like true love. But she had her own ideas about the future. She felt I couldn't provide the standard of living she desired. It was painful, but her leaving made me rethink a lot of things. I realized that my success was not just about money and career, but about being able to be happy on my own, independent of other people's expectations. After my divorce, I became more cautious about relationships. I didn't want to repeat past mistakes, so it took me a long time to allow myself to open up to someone new. That all changed when I met Rebecca. Our meeting was an accident that I now remember as a fateful moment. It happened at a coffee shop where I stopped for a bite to eat after work. She was sitting at a nearby table, engrossed in her textbooks and notes. I couldn't look away. Her focus and passion were impressive. I was curious as to what had so captivated the beautiful girl. Our first conversation was simple. We exchanged opinions about the cafe, about the weather. But I wanted more. When I found out that she was a student of medical college, I realized that in front of me not only attractive, but also smart girl. At that moment, I thought I would like to get to know her better. Since then, we started seeing each other more often. I discovered that she had a great sense of humor. She laughed easily and made me laugh. Her optimism and cheerfulness were contagious. Gradually, I realized that I was beginning to fall in love. It felt like I was breathing fresh air after a long time alone. We spent more and more time together, and every moment with her seemed special to me. When I suggested that she meet my friends and family, she agreed without hesitation. This was an important step for me because the opinion of my loved ones played a significant role. To my surprise, they accepted her as their own. Her kindness, openness, and sincerity impressed them. A month after our first meeting, I realized that I didn't want to lose this girl. The decision to propose came spontaneously, but I felt it was the right thing to do. She said yes, and that was the peak of my joy. Our first few months of marriage were like a honeymoon. It seemed as if it should never end. We were enamored with each other, and each day brought something new and exciting. But as in any fairy tale, there came a moment when reality intervened in our idyllic world. One night, during dinner, Rebecca suddenly announced that her college was sending her on a 3-month internship in another city. I felt my heart clench. The distance between us had never been a problem, because we'd always been together. But now it was going to be 3 months of seeing each other only on weekends, if we were lucky. My first reaction was to offer to turn down the internship, but Rebecca convinced me that it was important to her. Then I suggested an alternative, rent an apartment in the city she was being sent to so we could be together. However, Rebecca insisted on living in the dorm with other students. She convinced me that it would be better for her to be around like-minded people. "It's going to be hard, but we'll get through it," she asked, taking my hands in hers. I nodded, though everything inside me resisted the thought. "Of course we'll make it through. I'll always be there for you, even if we are physically separated by miles," I replied, trying to sound confident. We'd agreed to communicate every day via video link and that I would visit her whenever I could carve time out of my work schedule. In the back of my mind, I hoped those 3 months would fly by. And then the fateful day came. I put her on the plane and drove home myself. The first week went relatively smoothly. We called every night, sharing news and spicy details of our day. I tried not to show it, but it was hard to get used to her absence. Work occupied almost all my thoughts, But when I came home to an empty house, I felt especially lonely. The second week I visited her as we had agreed. We visited a few cozy cafes, walked around the parks, and even went to the movies. Everything was perfect, and I seemed resigned to the fact that we would have to part indefinitely. We spent a night together, full of a tenderness that I was sorely missing. The next day I left. The first alarm bell rang when Rebecca suddenly interrupted our phone conversation. We used to be able to video chat for hours, but now her calls were getting shorter. Sometimes she even forgot to call, citing business. I tried to be understanding. After all, she was on an internship and I didn't want to distract her from her studies. My days were monotonous now. I'd come home from work, drop on the couch, open a bag of chips, and watch a show about a chemistry teacher who took a wrong turn. 2 months went by like that. In that time, we've only seen each other 3 times. I was supposed to visit Rebecca this week, but she canceled, saying she was tired. I wasn't happy with that arrangement, so I called my father and asked for advice. "Edward, you're not a little kid. You have every opportunity to give her a little surprise. Even if you only spend a minute together, it will be enough. Especially since there's only 1 month left," my father said. I realized that he was right. What's stopping me from going to Rebecca? I decided to fly to her for the weekend. Upon arrival, I headed to her dormitory. My heart was racing with excitement. I stood in front of her hostel and suddenly realized that my hands were shaking. I dialed her number on my cell phone and dared to call. She was unavailable. I waited a few minutes and called again. She answered the phone. I announced my arrival. Her voice sounded strained, which immediately alarmed me. "I'm down here," I said, trying to hide my disappointment at her reaction. I walked toward her room. Every step felt heavy. My dreams of a happy reunion began to crumble before I even saw her. The door opened. I saw Rebecca in a new nightgown that emphasized all her features. She looked stunning, but her face was full of confusion. I felt like I had come at an inconvenient time. It felt like I wasn't welcome here. I tried to hug her, seeking her lips with mine, but she pulled away. "I missed you so much. Maybe we should go to a hotel," she said. My heart sank. "What's the problem?" I asked, not realizing what was going on. "I'm tired of sitting here in these 4 walls. I want to get some fresh air," she said nonchalantly. "Why are you alone in the room?" I suddenly asked. For she was indeed alone. "My roommates are out walking. And, as you can see, I'm here alone studying," she replied. I was proud of her for dedicating her time to studying and practicing rather than going to clubs. I didn't want to go anywhere. I let her go. I wanted her here and now. Her nightgown was translucent, exposing parts of her body, which turned me on. I made another attempt to possess her, and this time I succeeded. She realized that resistance was futile and obediently followed my example. We lay down on the bed. I began to savor the scent of her body. Every inch of her body was under my control. Rebecca was a 25-year-old woman with a very attractive figure. I realized how much I had missed her warmth and tenderness over the past month. We got down to business. Her loud moans turned me on even more. I don't know how much time had passed, about 10 or 15 minutes, when I noticed something strange. I saw men's underwear on the nightstand that clearly wasn't mine. My world came crashing down. "Whose is it?" My voice sounded alarmed. She tried to lie, saying it belonged to her friend's boyfriend. But I saw the lie in her eyes. Then I heard a rustling from the closet. I stopped our process and headed for the closet. Rebecca tried to grab my hand, but I pushed her away and opened the closet door. There I found a young man who was 10 years younger than me. Apparently, he was the lover. The world around me ceased to exist. My mind was in complete chaos. Looking at Rebecca, I felt physically sick with the realization of her betrayal. Rebecca started to say something, but her voice sounded like a squeak to me. I looked at her and then at the guy in the closet. I wanted to trash the room. I think they saw the anger in my eyes. When I looked at the guy, out of the blue, he suddenly started crying and begging for mercy. I didn't confront my lover. I felt somewhat sorry for him, realizing that my wife was probably the initiator of their relationship. The guy seemed harmless, so I didn't want to touch him. The only thing I asked was his name. He introduced himself as Joshua Rasmussen. That made sense to me. Gathering my strength, I silently walked out of the room, leaving behind shattered dreams. The drive home was the longest and loneliest of my life. Rebecca tried to contact me, but I had already blocked her number. Upon returning home, I immediately contacted someone to gather information on Joshua Rasmussen. Within 2 hours, I had a complete dossier on him. Joshua Rasmussen was a medical school student and was also interning in the same city. He had a handicapped mother that he was diligently taking care of. I realized that I was definitely not going to target this man right now. I needed to focus on what to do about Rebecca. I wanted to divorce her, but realized that she probably wouldn't allow me to divorce her so easily with minimal loss. I needed to file for divorce and accuse her of adultery. However, I had no proof, which became a serious problem. Then I decided to hire a private investigator to keep tabs on Rebecca. The chances of her cheating on me seemed slim, given that I knew her lover. But, as they say, even a blind squirrel finds a nut once a year. I waited 2 days. The detective informed me that Rebecca was acting normal and seemed to be planning to go home. This made me realize that I needed to act more boldly. I had a backup plan that might have seemed horrible, but I had no other choice. I waited for Rebecca to come home. In the meantime, I talked to my dad and told him everything that had happened and that I was going to get a divorce. "You're crazy. You're in your 30s and you're getting divorced for the second time. You don't have kids. You don't have a wife. What are you going to do next? The girl made a mistake. It happens to everybody. Why go straight to divorce? Talk to her first and then make a decision," my father said. I was hurt that he forgave my wife's cheating, considering it a minor mistake. I considered it a disaster, not a mistake. I decided that if Rebecca came home and explained the reason for her cheating normally and why she lied in agreeing to the divorce, then I would do nothing wrong. But if she starts lying to me again, I can't vouch for my actions. It's been 4 days since I found out about my wife's infidelity. A letter arrived from an unknown sender with plane tickets. It was tomorrow's flight. I realized that Rebecca would be coming home tomorrow night. That was great news. I intentionally took the day off and prepared everything to execute my plan. As expected, Rebecca returned in the evening. She seemed surprisingly cheerful, as if nothing serious had happened. "Darling, I'm so ashamed. I was afraid you were going to leave me. I missed you so much. I love you," she said, almost snuggling into my neck. Wait. Just because I stayed home doesn't mean I've forgiven you. This is my home. That's why I live here. Secondly, I demand an explanation as to why you cheated on me, I said firmly. "Cheated? You don't get it. That guy you found in the closet was crazy. You know he had health problems, especially with his head. He was always peeping at girls. And actually I should be mad at you for leaving me alone with him in the bedroom," Rebecca said. If I were in a cartoon, my jaw would have dropped to the floor. I'd burst through it and come out the other side of the earth. I've never been fed such nonsense. How could she cheat on me and then make me look guilty? I even believed her for a moment and started replaying that night in my head. In order to get the information I needed from her, I set my plan in motion. "Are you serious? I'm sorry. I didn't mean to leave you there alone. I thought you were cheating on me," I said. "How could you think that? Joshua is a harmless guy, but with his quirks. And besides, you've seen him. How could I cheat on you with him?" she said. And I thought to myself, bravo. Does my wife really think I'm going to believe that the guy in the closet was just there, a coincidence, and she knew nothing about him? It wasn't a coincidence. She wanted to get me out of the hotel room. We came home. I told Rebecca I missed her, so I suggested we go to our bedroom. "Listen, I have a proposition for you. I want to try sex, but blindfolded," I said, thinking I would have to beg her for a long time to do it. But she agreed without a second thought. I blindfolded her tightly, and at that moment we started kissing. Ralph is a man I met a few days ago. I offered him money in exchange for sex with Rebecca. As we walked into our bedroom and started making out, I told Rebecca that I needed to take off my jeans. While I stood there making noise, Ralph sat down on the bed next to Rebecca. They continued to kiss and undress. I quietly left the room, went into the living room to my laptop, and started watching what was going on through the surveillance cameras I had previously installed in our bedroom. Rebecca apparently didn't feel any different, thinking she was having sex with me. I watched the screen, and at some point I got scared because I was starting to enjoy it. At one point, Rebecca decided to take the blindfold off and saw Ralph in front of her, not me. She started screaming and pushing Ralph away. Ralph quickly left the room, and I entered. Rebecca, terrified, was sitting on the bed. You see this flash drive in my hands. It has a recording of you having sex with another man on it. So unless you want that footage to end up in court with your friends, your parents, and your college professors, you better come clean about everything that has happened in the last 2.5 months. I said and sat down next to her on the bed. Rebecca was startled. She clearly wasn't expecting this situation, but I didn't care. I wanted to know the truth, so she started talking. First of all, you're an idiot. And second, she began, but I quietly interrupted her. Let's avoid aggression and go in order. How did you get to the point of cheating? I interrupted her and asked her to tell me the facts. Okay, this guy in the closet. Well, I slept with him. It was a couple times, she began. A couple times? I interrupted her. Well, not a couple, maybe a little more, she began, and I demanded, tell me the exact number. I said, unable to stand it. Well, about 10, maybe 15, she said. How many? I asked, not believing her. Well over 30 times, she replied satisfactorily. Wow, go on, I said, surprised. I wasn't planning on cheating on you, but the thing is, this guy had a sick mother and he was taking care of her. We met about 2 weeks after I got there. I was interested in taking care of a sick person, and later I found out that he had never had sex or a girlfriend, and I felt sorry for him, she continued. Wait, you're saying you slept with him because you felt sorry for him? I interrupted her. Yes, I felt sorry for him, and we slept together the first time in the hospital and then in the dorm. But I want you to know that I didn't have any feelings for him. I was indifferent to him, and it's over between us, she said. I was disgusted to look at her. A married woman cheated out of pity for another man. It even sounds absurd. I told her, you pack your things now. I'll give you some money so you can rent a hotel tomorrow. I'll prepare the divorce papers and you'll have to sign them on my terms, I said firmly. Why did I tell you the truth? I don't want a divorce, she said. If you hadn't cheated, then there would be no divorce. I can't trust and respect you anymore. I'm sorry, but this is your fault, I said. Rebecca started threatening me, saying she would report me to the police that she was being forced to have sex. But I quickly silenced her. I had her on the hook. She was my puppet that night. She packed her things and left for the hotel in a cab. The next day, I got a call from my angry father. He accused me of blackmailing my own wife. I tried to explain the situation to him, but he refused to listen. He said that Rebecca had come to see them last night, accusing me of blackmail and deceit. I admitted that my actions were foolish and unwise. However, Rebecca's actions were even more absurd. My father was unwilling to listen to me and take my side. He stated that he would not allow Rebecca to sign the divorce papers. That's when I decided to remind him of his old sins. Dad, okay, you don't have to make any concessions to me and you can defend that cheater all you want. But be warned that Mom will know all about your adventures with the young girls from a year ago. You must have forgotten I still have pictures, right? I said. Dad quickly fell silent and his tone changed. I think you're right. You need to divorce the cheating girl, my dad said and hung up the phone. An hour later, a cab pulled up to my house and Rebecca got out and signed the divorce papers. It's the right decision, I added ironically. Rebecca looked depressed, but I didn't care. I didn't want to leave her with nothing at all. The trial was coming up soon. Rebecca, in the meantime, was living in a hotel. I paid for her room and board. We divorced, I sold the house, and we split the money. I guaranteed that I would help her financially until she graduated or until she found a new boyfriend. I bought my own house and continued my normal life working from home. To that, I also added hanging out at clubs. I realize now that it's too early for me to start a family and I can still relax. It's been a year since I divorced Rebecca. She has come over to my house a couple times and we have had sex. I don't know why, but it was better with her than with anyone else. I'd had a lot of casual hookups, but it just wasn't the same with them. So I often invited Rebecca to spend the night at my place. I don't know how right it was, but it felt good. And that's the most important thing. That's the end of the story. Why do you think why did the main character's wife commit adultery, aside from pity? Why did the main character choose such a horrible way to blackmail his wife? How can you evaluate his actions? We believe that the protagonist cheated not only out of pity, but because she wanted new sensations. The protagonist is 32 years old and his wife is 25. She considers herself young and attractive. She was interested in trying an affair with another man. The protagonist chose an extremely unfortunate way to expose his wife. He invited a strange man into his home who was supposed to be proof of the affair. But what if the wife hadn't actually cheated? Then the protagonist would in no way be able to justify his actions. It was an extremely stupid and rash decision. He was just lucky that his wife confessed and did not think to call the police.
Thank you so much for watching my video and your time. Please subscribe to my channel and click on the bell button. Also, I am very interested to know your personal opinion about this story. You can write it in the comments. I will definitely read it and reply to you personally.